Welcome to All Things Chiropractic.
Well, guess what, Doc?
What?
This is the anniversary of our completion of our first year of podcasting.
Wow, time flies when you're having fun, right?
It is.
It's been a great year. Oh, my God.
Yeah. I mean, suffering you a little bit, but, you know.
It's been a great year
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. So looking back on that year, we hope that everybody out there listening has enjoyed it. We certainly have and do, and we're going to ramp it up this year a little bit. We've got, some guests lined up for this year.
Nice. Exciting people. I'm excited to even talk to them.
Right. I mean, the listener feedback about reducing the amount of time you talk is out there. I'm just kidding.
I'm going now.
Yeah. But I think
I thought we were going to change it to All Things Mark Davini.
Yeah. Basically, that's the subtitle of this whole podcast anyway. I'm just kidding. Anyway, we hope you've enjoyed it. We hope you continue to enjoy it. If you have any feedback, any topic ideas, things you'd like to have us dig into, go to allthingschiropractic.com.
And tell others.
And yes, share that and feel free to share with others on whatever platform you're listening to us on.
Thank you all for a wonderful first year.
Yes, it's been fantastic. So we hope you enjoyed this episode as we mark our anniversary.
Welcome to All Things Chiropractic.
Welcome to another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
I'm Dr. Mark Davini.
Okay, so not to get in your face, Doc, but today's episode is what?
Standing up to confrontation, you.
Do you like confrontation?
I don't think anybody.
You're Italian. You don't mind it, do you? Come on.
No.
Yeah. I don't. You know what's funny? I really don't like confrontation, but the way my life is set up with the things that I do, it happens a lot.
Yeah. If you weren't skilled at it, how would you complete your tasks?
So speaking of skilled at it, I can tell you that my years of participation on regulatory boards and my town boards and being chairman of these respective boards has taught me diplomacy. It has created an education that's not why I started that. It's just been a benefit of volunteering or being on these particular boards because you have to deal with personalities in a professional manner, you know?
But you also have to communicate effectively, and without the ability to confront, or if you don't learn those skills, all you end up being, you end up dancing around issues, or the information isn't communicated properly. You know, it's all passive aggressive type of thing, behavior that never works. So it's a skill. It's something that you have to learn and perfect.
Maybe this tagline could have been, instead of standing up to confrontations, don't recede.
Don't recede.
You know?
We're not talking about hair.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But that's it, because if you cower back from your position when you know your position is accurate or you are passionate about your position, then you end up giving up real estate and then forget it. Then I hate to say the word losing, because I don't think it's a winning or losing thing. I think it's about communication and clarity.
Exactly. Doctors and CAs, I want you to think about every time you've had to confront a patient or had a confrontation with a patient. I could almost promise you, if not 100%, pretty close to 100% of the time, it comes from the fact that there's information that was not effectively transmitted up front or before. So now what you're doing is you're backpedaling to try and you're backfilling, I should say, trying to backfill in information. Well, this is what I meant, or this is what it always has been, or she knew what I meant, and you're going through this whole dialogue of backfilling the conversation. We're saying get it done up front.
Let me give you a real-time example of exactly that. So one of my billing clients, helping them I'm helping them with patient balances, meaning, some of the procedures and protocols because their patient balance AR is pretty high. And they hired somebody who was really good at and bold about calling about balances, right?
Hmm.
And so if I were to bottom line why this office got into this situation is because they had a few people at the front desk that absolutely were unable or their skills at confronting or asking for money was poor. And now you fast forward months, or maybe even years later, asking for the money. The first thing they say is, why didn't someone tell me before?
Isn't it? It's the whole concept of informed consent. It's the whole concept of what your financial responsibilities are. You're a billing company. You're the billing person, and I know you're a strong advocate of verification of benefits in advance.
Oh, yeah.
In advance. What happens when you don't have that?
Yeah. And even when, because one of the things we talked about with the staff was when you verify benefits and you're talking about with the patient, do not etch this in stone. It's a quote. It's an estimate. This is what your insurance company is telling us about your benefit. And give them what this is our understanding, so you understand.
Best knowledge. Even the federal government understands the issues of confrontation. They passed the No Surprises Act.
Right.
Right? Without getting into the details of that monstrosity, but the concept is you tell everybody up front what their responsibilities would be so there are no surprises. Because 9 times out of 10, the problem is going to be about money.
Oh,
and, the dentist did us a favor many years ago. I've mentioned this a number of times, but, they did a study and they found out that the patients who were most unsatisfied with their dental work were patients who had balances. So by having a balance that they didn't pay, the only way they could justify not paying the doctor would be to complain about the outcome. And if it even went further than that, they would complain so far as to say it was to their detriment. And that's where lawsuits come from. So avoiding a patient not knowing their responsibilities, not knowing what to expect, not knowing everything up front, what may or may not happen, your best guess, but it's not a guarantee, blah, blah, blah. You need to be able to confront people. And it sounds like we're talking about two different things, but we're not. Because when you sit there, you have to be able to confront people about schedule, finances, outcomes, whatever.
And some people get confused with the word confrontation as aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually, that's why I think not receding from the topic is a better way of understanding it's not aggressive. I'll give you another example. So I had a patient of one of our billing clients. They called the billing company and she was upset about how her claim was being processed. Now she was on an auto. There was correlation requirements with the health insurance. Anyway, 2 of my staff had talked to her and both of them were like, well, we're going to give you to the owner, right? So you want to hear. So when I took the phone call, she was emotional, but she was, she had her opinion. So the first thing I did was I just let her air it out. Whatever she wanted to say, however she wanted to say it. And
you mean listen?
Yes, active.
You actually listened to the person?
Yes, because a lot of people, they don't listen, they wait to talk again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as I'm listening to all this and I'm understanding her logic. And her logic was actually pretty sound, although it would be fraud to do what she asked. So, but her logic from her standpoint, to make a long story really short, what her real fear wasn't really about the way the claim was processing. It was the fear of having a balance due that she would have to pay because she was buying a townhouse and it was her first time buying a house and she was very scared about the ratios of debt to income. And so it all came down to that.
Always money.
So then I started talking to her about Dave Ramsey and Financial University. But she was fine at the end because really the misinformation came from her own auto insurance adjuster. who told her that this is how much your coverage is, when actually she had a lot more coverage that wasn't being disclosed. It was intentionally communicated in a way that she thought she only had a limited amount of coverage. And I said, no. And actually, I had to pull up her app on her phone. Now you can do that. It's easier. Pull up her coverage. And I showed her. She was very relieved. And I'm saying to myself, because I use it as a learning opportunity to talk to the staff who are having challenges with her. And I said, it's not lost on me that I'm a man, she's a woman, and talking with the different genders sometimes has an impact. Good or bad, either way. But and I'm also the owner talking, so you know what I mean. Like that has an influence.
An authority figure there.
Yeah. So I understand those sort of backdrop things. But I said, the way I tackled it is the way I explained it to you and to everyone out there. So I said, let them feel heard, and then bring them through. Acknowledge their logic or understanding of what it is they're trying to communicate, and then start to slowly bring them to why or why not something can happen, and not every time.
What'd you say?
Yeah, exactly. It's fraud. And I hung up the phone. So it's more like, and not every phone call ends that successfully, but the point is that I didn't dismiss this person out of hand, and I was able to provide information that she was unaware of when she started that conversation.
You said something earlier when you said that, a lot of people think confrontation means that they're being aggressive. And it's not that confrontation is aggressive. It's the way you might respond to confrontation, and it's the aggressiveness that comes from confrontation. But they're not linked together. This emotional component is the one thing that usually makes a lot of conversations go off the rails. There was an old TV show, it was called Point Counterpoint. And basically two people sat in chairs facing each other, and it was all in a black background. And all they did was debate an issue calmly and quietly. And they would just look at each other and say, well, I respect your opinion, but I think it's this and I think it's that. And it was interesting that talking about confrontation, Saturday Night Live did a skit on Point Counterpoint. And there was Dan Aykroyd and Jane Curtin sitting there, and Dan Aykroyd made his point. Jane Curtin made her point, and Dan Aykroyd looked at her very kindly and said, "Jane, you ignorant slut." And the whole point was that they did this manner thing that no matter what they said, it still was a debate instead of an argument. And when you bring emotion into it and you let the assertiveness turn into aggression, it's no longer a conversation.
Well, that kind of plays into how you respond to pushback from a patient or anyone, right? Mm-hmm. So let's just use patients, because front desk and collections are probably the biggest, area that you're going to run into this.
Yeah, if you don't have someone who can confront at the front desk, they shouldn't be at the front desk.
Yeah, you might want to think about pivoting roles. It depends, because sometimes it's the other way around. Like there'll be someone at the front desk who's so aggressive and so, I guess, pushy and short that they don't really do a lot of benefit up front. And I'm like, you need to make that person the one that calls insurance adjusters. Right. That would be perfect.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. If they don't pay their copay, all of a sudden the big steel door slams shut.
Yeah.
They're not leaving until they do.
But it includes not just, because people feel you more than they hear you, right? That's what Parker used to say. So
11% of communication is verbal. The rest is nonverbal.
So how you do that, or how your staff does that, even if it's a patient in the room, doctor, and they're like, do not touch my neck. I don't want a stroke. Now, are you going to get defensive, or are you going to lay out why they're fearful and lay out the actual anatomy and physiology?
And really, from a chiropractic standpoint and a clinician standpoint, if all you say is okay, without at least making an attempt to have them understand it in a different way, you might still ultimately end up deciding not to do it. That's you as a clinician, and that's your choice. But the point is, you have to confront these issues. Chiropractic, if you don't have the ability to confront, I can tell you right now, chiropractic is going to be a tough job for you. We are not mainstream. We don't have the ability to be abrasive and to be basically a jerk about things. How many MDs did you go to that were jerks? How many times would you say, look, I'd rather have my surgeon be a complete jerk than a nice guy, as long as he's the best surgeon in the world. So we don't have those luxuries. We not only have to be the doctor, but we are like chief cook and bottle washer. We're everything in the office, including public relations.
And that does kind of play into this whole idea of like knowing when to choose your battles. So if you had a patient who just absolutely said, do not adjust my neck, right? Just don't. And you give them the education, you have to make that choice, right? Do I dismiss him as a patient, or do I feel like I gained a little ground, and maybe since they're not giving me informed consent, I won't adjust their neck right now, but maybe I will get that opportunity after a few visits.
Can I get there from here?
Right, exactly. So, you say to yourself, okay, some of that goes into the empathy, right? If you're not understanding how that person's feeling across the table or on the phone or whatever it is, if you're just dug into your position and don't give something to them, you don't have to agree with them.
Right.
But
something
to allow them to know that you understand, or you feel for them, or you feel that you are hearing them.
And, it's important as a doctor to recognize that your job goes way beyond just being the technician rendering an adjustment. Because the truth of the matter is we can teach people to do things very quickly. We can't teach people to be a doctor. We can't teach them to be sympathetic and empathetic, to listen and to put themselves in their place and to try and meet them at their level and to bring them from point A to point B in their understanding of healthcare and chiropractic. I mean, these are all things that we do or should be doing every day with patients. And one of them is making sure that there is a clear communication between us, that you can't be afraid to collect a balance. Doctors, I can tell you right now, you will lose patients over balances. So ultimately, if a patient walks out of your office because of a balance, never goes back to a chiropractor because of a balance, have you done them any favors? Have you done yourself any favors?
Even worse, they'll end up trashing you on social media and Google reviews.
It's a lose-lose situation.
Yeah.
So if you develop these confrontation skills so that whenever there is any kind of issue, whether it be financial or clinical or otherwise, then you will be a better doctor. You will have a better practice. You will thrive more. All the pluses. It's not just win-win. It's win-win, win-win-win.
Right. And so when you're looking at, confrontation or not receding from a particular thing, if you or a staff person aren't very good at it, have you invested in yourself or them to try to refine that training to make them better at it?
Yeah. And maybe they're innately not that person. We talked about personality styles and situations like that, like Paul said earlier, if they're a certain way, maybe they're best in collecting money. You put them in a different job description. Or if they're afraid to ask a patient for money, maybe the front desk isn't the best place for them to be. There's just so many ways that you can take this information and say, okay, I want to create my team, but I want my team to be the best that it can be, which means I have to put people in the right place.
Yeah, we've talked about investing in your staff so many times, so that's definitely part of it. And part of it is to understand, I think Parker called it a poverty complex, right? If you've got someone at the front desk who's not asking for that $40 copay, it could be because they know they would be challenged with paying $40 3 times a week,
And they're not assigning enough value to the service to say that with confidence. So that would be one of those confrontation situations that you as the doctor and the employer would have to go to the staff member and say, what's the issues? Instead of correcting them and yelling at them and saying, you're not collecting enough of the copays, you're not doing a good job here. There's a reason. And if you develop these confrontational skills, or these skills to confront a person effectively, you'll find out the reasons behind whatever the issue might be. and most likely find a resolution.
Sometimes it's just information to let that staff person understand, like, oftentimes the patient copay or coinsurance is the lion's share, if not the entire claim allowable. So does your CA know that taking that $45, you might get a $2 check from the insurance company, or maybe zero, because the whole allowable was the copay. And that's it. So if we don't take the money at that moment over the desk, now we're already behind.
Right. One of my pet stories, in a sense, to say, and it kind of is a closing story in a sense. Whenever a doctor treats on the first visit without performing a report of findings before the treatment, without giving the patient complete informed consent, which is a whole other discussion and podcast. But basically, when they treat on the first visit, I always ask them, why? They go, oh, well, the patient came in pain and they expect, something. I said, so they come in pain. I said, are you going to get them well in one adjustment? No, of course not. I said, so a couple scenarios. Number one, God forbid it worked. In a sense, they got well in one adjustment, which we know miracles happen. Now they never come back. They got what they wanted. They don't even come back for the report of findings. They don't listen to you about the benefits of stabilizing and reconstructing their spine. Or they don't come back because that one adjustment flared them up. And then what's the first place they're going to go to is the emergency room or the emergency department. And then the first thing that doctor's going to say is that chiropractor hurt you. So without going through the discussion, which in part will be confrontational, telling what they need, how much it's going to cost, and everything else, you've created a situation where you may have lost a patient. Again, not doing them any favors. So here's a nice little closing statement that I can't even say the person's name correctly, I'm sure, but it's Vincent O.K. Nakuku. And he said, only those who confront unusual challenge can flaunt unusual success.
That's a good quote. I like that.
Yeah, I think so.
So is there anything you want to confront with me before we sign off?
Jane, you ignorant slut.
Yeah, exactly. With that, thank you again for joining us for another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
Dr. Mark Davini. Thank you all.
Thanks for listening to All Things Chiropractic. We'd love to hear from you. Visit allthingschiropractic.com with comments, episode ideas, or questions. Or connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at All Things Chiropractic Podcast. Be sure to join Dr. Mark Davini and Paul Andrews next time for another episode of All Things Chiropractic.